Shalom, hello, welcome to Torah Talk with Tamar. I'm Tamar, and on today's episode, I want to chat about ethical warfare in the Torah. Hi, I'm Tamar. I'm a scholar of the Hebrew Bible, a writer, and a homeschooling, homesteading, home birthing, Torah keeping, widowed mother of 7. Together, we live in the Southern Appalachian, Southwest Virginia region of the United States, where I keep sheep, grow crops, and cook our meals from scratch, together with my 5 boys and 2 girls. Welcome to my channel. I want to discuss this topic today because it's the 1-year mark since Israel was invaded by Hamas on October the 7th, 2023. It's been 1 year that Israel has endured a long, brutal war to fight terrorism in their own country. I also want to talk about this because of recent events, particularly Netanyahu's speech to the UN and the response of the Prime Minister of Barbados. Netanyahu gave a powerful, inspiring, and convicting speech recently to the United Nations. And in that speech, he undoubtedly, and of course, used references to the Hebrew Bible. He is, after all, living in Israel and is a descendant of Sarah and Abraham. In response to a speech at the UN, the Prime Minister of Barbados gave a speech in rebuke to Netanyahu, saying that he could not misquote the Hebrew Bible to support a war in Israel. She actually picked out a quotation from her New Testament Bible, what is referred to as the book of Romans to Christians, saying a quote that was actually a reference to the Old Testament. And of course, the Christian New Testament is what it is today because of their references to the Old Testament, which come from the Hebrew Bible and from the Jewish people. She quoted, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." And she attempted to use this quote to say that a war in Israel was not okay. It was morally wrong. Well, today I want to talk about whether or not her rebuke is foolish or founded. Let's take a look at Netanyahu's core statement at the United Nations, which represents a Hebraic perspective on warfare.
Israel has every right to remove this threat and return our citizens to their homes safely. And that's exactly what we're doing.
At the outset, the prohibition against killing in the Torah may look like a contradiction to the ethics of warfare in the Torah, but with closer examination, it's not. Thou shalt not kill, as the famous command goes, is not a blanket prohibition against all killing. The Torah is primarily concerned with spilling innocent blood as a prohibition. Never should the life of someone be taken when they are innocent. There are times when judges are commanded to put someone to death as a form of capital punishment for their sin. Kinsmen avengers are permitted in the Torah. And today I want to focus on the ability of Israelites to go to war in an ethical manner according to the Torah. In the Torah, there are a number of rules about who will go to war, what the Israelites may take from any country that they've invaded, and how to treat prisoners of war. There's a common passage I want to address because it's often misrepresented as being misogynistic. There is a passage saying that Israelite men may take women as prisoners of war. It's not unethical in the Hebrew Bible to take a prisoner of war that remains from a country that Israel has invaded. And I'm in no way condoning Hamas raping, tying up, burning and invading civilian homes, because that is not what the Torah is condoning, even if they would try to find a link back to Abrahamic religion and claim that what they're doing is okay. Rape as a weapon of war is forbidden in the Torah. So is tying people up, burning them, and invading civilian homes. When Israel invaded countries by the command of the Most High, oftentimes there would be remaining people that they would take back into their home country. Because those countries were completely obliterated, this was an act of mercy towards the remaining people. They were not allowed to mishandle and mistreat the people. This was giving them a chance to be absorbed into the nation of Israel, which was a strong and beautiful nation guided by high ethics. And when they returned into Israel, they were given the opportunity to work. The women were also given an opportunity to marry the men on the condition that they stopped worshiping foreign Elohims. They would shave their head as a form of cleansing themselves. They were given a month to mourn their parents with dignity. And then they were given new clothes, demonstrating that they were assimilating into the culture. This was by the choice of the woman. This was never forced marriage, nor was it forced intimacy with these women. The women had a choice whether to remain as laborers or to be adopted into the nation of Israel and given full citizenship with dignity. First, let's take a look at what Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados said in response to Netanyahu's speech to the United Nations.
In the stories of the Old Testament, much which has guided many people across this world. But when we turn from the Old Testament to the New Testament, it is Romans that says to us, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord," not any country.
In the Torah, there are a number of guidelines for warfare. And most of all, the Torah does not prohibit war. There is no moral expectation of pacifism in the Torah. That is something that has been created by sects of Christianity and secular humanists. They believe that if you're attacked, you should sit there and just bear it up. And a lot of this comes from misunderstandings and what I believe are misrepresentations of Rabbi Yehushua's teachings. Namely, those in what are referred to as the Gospels. And whether or not you believe Yahushua was the Messiah, he did in fact exist historically, and he did leave a number of teachings to us that were basically midrash on the Torah. And in those, he makes a number of statements referring back to the Torah and the guidelines in Torah that are discussing eye for eye. Those passages are notorious for being misunderstood as exaltations of pacifism. But without understanding the Torah, people err. There is no expectations in the teachings of Rabbi Yehoshua for us to be pacifists. And there wouldn't be, because there's no expectation in the Torah for somebody who's being provoked or attacked to just lay down and die or lay down and be trampled. So let's get into it. Let's look at it. Of course, there's a famous passage in the Torah that people reduce to eye for eye. And I'm still going to bring this up as a foundational point. The Torah is heavily concerned with fairness. That if somebody has something stolen from them, they are compensated for what they lost, plus interest for the days that they lost those items. Not excessive interest, but 4 times, for example, the cattle that they lost. If somebody is injured in a fight, the person who injured the other person is expected to pay for their recovery. This is a form of restitution. In Numbers 5, we read that if somebody is affected by another person's sin, the person who affected them negatively is to offer them restitution. There's no concept in the Torah that you should just take an injury and say, hey, that's okay, or, accept the person saying, I'm sorry. In addition to the remorse that is expected from a person in the Torah, there's also the concept of restitution. And at the other end of the spectrum, when somebody is full-blown attacked in their limb and life, there is every right of the surviving family member or the person who survives to stand up and act in self-defense. Torah has a concept called a kinsman avenger. And that is where the family member of a person who was wrongfully killed may go and pursue the attacker and kill them. So again, there's no expectation in the Torah that somebody should sustain an injury without restitution or avenging the wrong. This is where I want to discuss what Mia Mottley said as the Prime Minister of Barbados, trying to attack Netanyahu and Israel as being unethical for driving a war in self-defense. So let's turn to Numbers, because in that passage, it explicitly says that in order to enact the vengeance of the Lord, the Creator is telling his people to go to war in order to fulfill his vengeance. Vengeance from above is not an arbitrary concept where we only wait for the day of judgment to get our restitution or get our fair judgment, and many of us will have to. But it explicitly says in the book of Numbers that the Creator told his people to go to war against the enemies of Israel in order to exact that vengeance. Let's read it. We are reading in Numbers 31. And Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, execute the vengeance of the sons of Israel against the Midianites, and afterward you shall be gathered to your people. And Moses spoke to the people, saying, some men of you be armed for the army, and they shall again be against Midian to execute the vengeance of Adonai on Midian. And I'm reading from a literal translation, so the English is a bit choppy. But it reads the same across all translations. The Creator told his people to gather an army to go against the enemies of Israel in order to exact the vengeance of the Creator. So the Prime Minister cherry picking out a verse from her Christian New Testament is inappropriate. For one, the Jewish people are not bound to follow her Christian New Testament. Let's go over the fact that she's drawing, and she knows she's drawing, from the Hebrew Bible, which the Jewish people do read, and the people of Israel read as well. In the Hebrew Bible, it does read the same. Vengeance is mine, says Adonai. But does that mean that verse in isolation can be read to say, lay down all weapons and be a pacifist? Absolutely not. Numbers 31 clearly shows us that in order to act out the will of the Creator, we have to pick up arms and fight the wicked. And there's every admonition in the Hebrew Bible for the righteous who live in Israel to fight against the wicked. There is no concept in the Hebrew Bible that all people are good. There is a concept and acknowledgement that there are wicked people. And I will be the first to say that terrorists are wicked people. They should not be protected. But I also want to read another passage in Numbers which shows us that if somebody is attacking us in the manner of an enemy and we belong to the nation of Israel, we have every right to act in our self-defense and counterattack instead of being a pacifist. And this shows again that the comments from the Prime Minister of Barbados are completely inappropriate. I'm going to turn to Numbers 25. And let's go to verse 16. And Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, vex the Midianites, and you shall strike them, for they are vexers to you, because of the wiles in which they have beguiled you in the matter of Peor, and in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of a ruler of Midian, their sister, who was smitten in the day of the plague because of the matter of Peor. So here is the Creator specifically telling the children of Israel to go and counterattack the Midianites who attacked them first. Again, there's no concept of pacifism in the Torah. And the comments of the Prime Minister from Barbados rebuking Netanyahu are completely inappropriate and unfounded. She's not familiar with the morality of the Torah, and she's speaking from a viewpoint which is not a religion that the people of Israel primarily follow. Much of the world is guided now from secular humanist views when it comes to warfare. Some of those match the Torah and some of them don't. Those who are complaining that Israel has civilian casualties in war are first of all setting a double standard against Israel. In order for the United States to win World War II and stabilize the world, we dropped an atomic bomb on our enemies. And that put an end to World War II. It was completely unheard of in World War I and World War II to feed enemy civilians any kind of food whatsoever. Israel has gone above and beyond the historical normatives of warfare. They have not only restrained from dropping an atomic bomb on Gaza, which they could do, they have the ability, but they've also gone and alerted civilians of where to flee. They've fed civilians on what's considered enemy territory, and this was unheard of in prior decades of warfare. If they would be bound, and they are, to the moral guidelines of the Torah, they could completely obliterate Gaza. There are several places in the Torah where in order to secure peace for the people of Israel, they had to completely destroy wicked nations. And this was the decision of the Most High, the Creator. A lot of people have objection to that. But the fact of the matter is, most civilized nations go out of their way to prosecute even juvenile delinquents and juvenile murderers. Suppose a wicked nation would spawn another generation of terrorists, murderers, psychopaths, and rapists. Would it then be preventative to completely obliterate a nation? It's not for us to know. The Torah does ask that the people of Israel first offer terms of peace to the opposing nation. And that is what they've done. The Hamas terrorists have shown that they truly do not want peace. They want to play games. And regardless of whether Israel binds itself to secular humanist rules of warfare, or the rules of Torah's warfare, or somewhere in between, or a mixture of both, the bottom line is that there is no obligation in Torah for Israel to be pacifist. It's completely ethical, according to the moral guidelines of Torah, to act in your self-defense, to enact the vengeance of the Most High when you're directly spoken to, and even when you need to defend your people. The comments of the Prime Minister of Barbados are not founded in the ethics of Torah. She is preaching a type of Christianity that is not part of the Torah. And there's no reason Israel or Netanyahu has to be bound to those rebukes. Quite frankly, her rebukes are quite foolish. Again, this is the 1-year mark that Israel has been forced to be in a war to secure peace in their country. And my prayers go out to those who are still a hostage in Gaza. And we hope that they come home. We also hope that those who are deceased hostages get the closure with their families by their bodies coming home. Israel is in the right to defend itself, and it always will be in the right to defend itself because the laws of Torah never change. Thanks for tuning in this episode of Ethical Warfare in the Torah. Leave your questions, comments, concerns, ideas, and thoughts about Torah in the bottom. And please don't forget to like and subscribe so you can join in more Torah discussions as they relate to everyday life and academic thought. Shalom.